field for the latest, and here's Danielle Bellini.
Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review. And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Denver Broncos at the St. Louis Rams. You can catch this Week 11 matchup on November 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on your local CBS affiliates. And we're doing something different here on Upon Further Review is we're trying out something new. We got some Madden gameplay to go along with the audio. Just give you something to look at instead of just a couple pictures flashing back and forth. Trying to make a better quality experience for you, the viewer, our subscribers. We appreciate all the subscribers very much, and this is our way of showing our appreciation by bringing you something that I hope you guys enjoy. And I'm actually playing this game as the team that I pick. So what I'm doing is I'm picking the game, and then I'm going to still do the Upon Further Review the way I do it as always, except that while I'm doing it, I'm going to multitask and play this game as the team I picked, and that's the Broncos right here. Denver Broncos versus the Rams. So I'm going to be playing as the Broncos against the Rams there in St. Louis. And in this game, heading into the game, the Broncos are 7-2 on the season. The Rams are 3-6. And the thing to note in this game is that the Rams are actually starting Shaun Hill instead of Austin Davis. Hill's back from the injury. You know, Bradford was their original starting quarterback. He went down. Shaun Hill ended up going down, and then Austin Davis, you know, he had a couple good games where he went over 300 in weeks 3 and 5. But, you know, 3 out of the last 4 weeks, he didn't reach 200 yards. Oh, come on. He dropped that pass. But let's actually look at the Broncos and how they got to 7-2. And they started off 2-0 with big wins against the Colts and the Chiefs in weeks 1 and 2 in Denver. They were actually big wins, but they were by a touchdown. Big in terms of against two really good teams, so they're important wins, not necessarily big per se. But in week 3, they went to Seattle in a rematch of Super Bowl 48, and they lost by a field goal, or by a touchdown rather. Mixing that game up with a different game. But they lost by a touchdown in overtime there in week 1. Alright, don't drop that one, Thomas. Oh no, he did! He fumbled! Oh, he picked it up! Oh my goodness, that was crazy. How insane was that? Hey, look at that, I got an achievement. Yay! Unstoppable! That was crazy. Oh my goodness, look at this play. I had to stop talking for a minute. This is nuts. Thankfully, I got the ball back. But yeah, and it was while I was talking about Super Bowl 48 and the rematch of it, but they had their bye week after that, and then after the bye week and that loss, they went on a 4-game winning streak. This is first they won against the Arizona Cardinals in Denver, a very impressive win. Of course, you know, there was no Carson Palmer, but even still, beating the Cardinals the way they did, it was a close game, and then late, they just took it out, you know, and they put it to a wide margin. They were up by like 8, and then they extended it to 3 touchdowns, and ended up by winning by 3 touchdowns by 21 points. Wes Welker, baby. But that was a big win for the Broncos. It was the first loss and only loss for the Cardinals this season, and that propelled the Broncos on a 4-game winning streak. They went to New York and they beat the Jets, and then they ended up beating the Niners and the Chargers in Denver. Those were big wins. They really destroyed the Niners, and they won pretty big over the Chargers too by 2 touchdowns. But then they went to New England on Sunday Night Football, Brady versus Manning 16, and they lost by 22. They bounced back last week against the Raiders in Oakland, winning 41-17. Peyton's been putting up big numbers. Even in that loss to the Patriots, he had 438 passing yards. They just couldn't get it going on the ground, though. Last week against the Raiders, though, Peyton had 340 yards, and Anderson had 90 on the ground. Hillman is hurt, but it's the return of Monty Ball. Of course, Monty Ball, you know, he wasn't really doing that great before he got injured, but we'll see how he does in his return. Emmanuel Sanders. Actually, let me look at Monty Ball's stats real quick. Yeah, he was only averaging 3.1 yards per carry, where C.J. Anderson at this point is averaging 5.7. Hillman was averaging 4.2. You know, and C.J. Anderson, oddly enough, has the exact same amount of yards on the ground as Monty Ball. They both have 172 yards, except that C.J. did it in 30 carries, whereas Monty Ball, it took him 55 carries to get the same amount of yards. Let's actually put C.J. Anderson in here for a play if we could real quick. Let's see how that goes. And passing the ball, moving down the field with Denver. Denver's the team, you know, we all know Peyton Manning. He's the Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, arguably the best. Personally, I like Brady better, but that's my own bias. And I can definitely acknowledge that Peyton is right there, and I can understand why anyone would make the argument. It's an easy argument to make in Peyton's favor, surely enough. Of course, I'm not going to get too into that right now. But anyway, he is an excellent player. We all know this. And the Broncos, they are a very potent offense. They're one of the best teams in football up and down their roster on both sides of the ball, really. The only thing they are lacking, though, is that running game. But C.J. Anderson might be the cure to that. Ronnie Hillman looked like he was the solution, but you know, he did get injured. C.J. Anderson, I mean, in this game, he's not rated that good, but he actually, like, you know, he did struggle against the Patriots, but last week against the Raiders, he was doing really good, so we'll see what he does against the Rams, and the Rams are a formidable team. They got a good defense. Actually, let's look at the Rams' schedule. That's what we do. The Rams lost in Week 1 to the Vikings. When they lost that game in Week 1 to the Vikings, everybody was talking about the Vikings were going to the Super Bowl. And then the Vikings actually still are a long shot for a wild card, but they're not too far off. Of course, they got a big game against Chicago this week. But anyway, the Rams, they went to Tampa Bay in Week 2, and they won that game, a close game, too, won by 2 points. Well, I got to get this right here, 3rd and 12 on the 34. Don't want to squander the opportunity. Don't want to get a penalty either. So yeah, Week 3, the Rams faced the Cowboys, and that was in St. Louis, and they barely lost, too. That was a huge game right there for Austin Davis. 327 yards. They lost by just 3 points, 34-31. A tight game for sure. Oh, Demaryius Thomas with the jump ball touchdown, baby. That was crazy. That's Peyton's favorite target. I mean, you could argue Julius Thomas is, but Demaryius too. They connect either way, Julius or Demaryius. Julius obviously the tight end. Demaryius Thomas, their star receiver. Emmanuel Sanders has been having a great year too, and of course, I mean, up and down their roster, they have great receiving talent. I mean, Wes Welker said recently that he's the worst receiver on their team. I think he said he's the worst player on their team, and he is a great player. Wes Welker, he's arguably a guy that you could make a argument towards possibly being in the Hall of Fame. He definitely is a very talented receiver, even though he is in the twilight of his career. But Demaryius, he is in his prime. Right there, you saw that touchdown. And he should actually have a good game against the Rams. But all right, back to the Rams' schedule. Week 4, they had the bye week. And then they continued their losing streak, which started with the Cowboys, where they lost 3 in a row. And so Week 5, they lost in Philadelphia to the Eagles. And then on Monday night, they lost against the Niners. So that was 3 games in a row they lost, 4 out of 5 to open up the season. Of course, in the last 4 games, they are 500. They're 2-2 in their last 4. They ended up beating Seattle. Of course, you know, a lot of people would argue that it was, you know, that fumble was questionable, whatever. But hey, a win's a win, and that was the result. And then, so it's kind of interesting, right? Both these teams beating the Seahawks this year. In Week 8, they ended up going to Kansas City. They got beat bad by their in-state rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, East versus West, Missouri. So they both, you know, are border cities on the edges of that state. And then in Week 9, in the rematch, they actually beat the Niners. So, and that is interesting because, you know, the Niners came in St. Louis and won, and then the Rams went to San Francisco and beat them. The Niners actually haven't been having a lot of success so far in Levi Stadium, of course. I'm sure they will in the future. But yeah, they won that game with an amazing goal line stance at the end. They had 8 sacks in that game. You know, I saw a different disputing. The one thing I said is 7 sacks, even though it was 8 sacks, was all that anyone was talking about. And it was even on the front page of like the newspaper and everything. But in Week 10, the Rams went to Arizona and they lost in that game. They lost pretty bad. But the Cardinals, they're like, they only lost once. And that was to the Broncos. The Cardinals are definitely a team that if you lose to them, there's no shame in it whatsoever. It's actually very, very impressive. The Broncos beat them. But yeah, right here, the Broncos going into St. Louis. They're looking pretty strong. Of course, Hillman is injured, like I mentioned earlier. So, oh no, what am I doing? Left Britt wide open, touchdown. That's the kind of thing. Sean Hill got an arm. The Rams can score. Look at that. The Rams score real quick, and this game's tied at 7 apiece. Of course, I'm kind of surprised. I can't believe I let that just happen. I was looking at the injury report, but whatever. So good. I'm sure they'll get a touchdown at some point. Even though the Broncos got a really nasty D. Let's actually look at the numbers for these two teams when it comes to passing proficiency. We just saw some passing proficiency right there. But in real life, the Broncos are the number 2 team in offensive passing yards per game. The Rams are 26th. So the Broncos, of course, Peyton Manning, that passing offense, they are unstoppable. They're number 2 in the whole NFL, second only to the Colts. And then the Rams, though, they're 26th. They're struggling to pass the ball. That's part of why, Austin Davis, the last few weeks just hasn't been getting it done, even though he showed some promise early on. So now it's the return to Sean Hill, the number 2. Back to number 2. He's healthy. Let's get some of my coffee. So then on pass defense, the Broncos are 19th and the Rams are 13th. So right there, see the Broncos, they do let up some passing yards, but part of that is because they're playing with the lead. Usually what happens with the Broncos is they get up by a touchdown or 2. Usually on the first possession or 2 they get a touchdowns. So then they get up on the scoreboard early. Peyton Manning, that they are really well at game planning and getting those early points from stuff that they've been working on all week. They come out, they execute. Plus Peyton makes the great reads. We all know this. And that's what leads their defense to let up a lot of passing yards, is because since the other teams are playing from behind, they're trying to play catch-up. And when they're playing catch-up, what ends up happening is they pass the ball, and then the Broncos, they're looking to stop the run. If teams get some yards in the air, it's okay. And so that's what happens. But then we look at the Rams, they're 13th. Their strength is against the pass, actually. They don't let up a lot of yards against the pass, and that is primarily because of their pass rush. They get a lot of sacks. Robert Quinn, he's just a sack monster, but he's actually not been getting as many sacks this year. Of course, he's come alive lately, and that was a big part of that huge game that they had against the Niners. And they continued to, get a lot of sacks last week as well. So, actually, let me look real quick. Yeah, I got time to look. When it comes to sacks, where is it? Yeah, Quinn has 6 sacks. Not bad. Not bad. 6 sacks. Let's see what we're gonna pick. There we go. I don't even know what the fuck I picked. There we go. Alright, cool. Let's see if we can get something going. It's first down anyway. Uh-oh. There we go. Emmanuel Sanders picks up the first down. So yeah, right there. 6 sacks for Robert Quinn, 3 for Aaron Donald. Altogether, what did that say? 30? Ooh, what's going on over everywhere? No. What? Oh. No, they let up. Alright. So they have 17 sacks as a team on defense, but they've let up 30. So they're not protecting their quarterback regardless. And that's part of why they have so many injuries at that quarterback position. But so Peyton got to watch out, though, for most guys. And, they got to have a good week blocking on defense. Look at that. C.J. Anderson with a big run. They were expecting to pass. But the Broncos do have a really good offensive line. They protect Peyton really well. Let me actually look at that right quick. the stats on that. Yeah, look at this. The Broncos are there. You want to talk about sacks? 24 sacks for the Broncos. They've only let up 9. So they're just freaking. Look at this. Von Miller, 9 sacks. DeMarcus Ware, 8 sacks. I didn't even realize it was that good. Look at that. I knew their Broncos defense. I was going to get to that in a moment, but
From inside the red zone, so dangerous.
the Broncos defense has been really having good numbers against the run, but part of that is just because of their offense too. But it's also because they just have such a good team on defense. Oh, almost sacked right there. Look at talking about sacks. Yeah, as I was saying though, when it comes to the pass defense, though the Rams do have a really good pass defense, but against the Broncos, it's not going to be enough. When it comes to the passing attack, definitely the Broncos have the advantage. Hold on here, it's less than a minute. We just get the touchdown. Actually bringing Monty Ball into the. What are you doing? Yeah, Monty Ball's in there now. Uh-oh, let's get this before the clock.
Welker's a receiver in the slot.
Pike.
2nd and 10.
Boom, Julius Thomas, touchdown Broncos. Payton took the hit too. But look at that, Julius Thomas. The Broncos getting the touchdown right before halftime.
Tight ends are a position where you got to be able to do it all. You got to be able to block, run routes, and you got to be able to
So then,
position. So
if we look at the running offense of these two teams, the Broncos are 26th in the NFL in running yards per game. The Rams are 22nd. And then when it comes to run defense, the Broncos are number 1 in the NFL in running yards allowed per game. The Rams are 25th. So the Broncos do not allow yards on the ground. And it's a combination of two things. I said it is their talent on defense. They have a sick defense. Like I was saying, they have all those sacks and everything, even though they let up some yards through the air. But what it is they're so nasty on offense too, but they have such a good defense. And they're coming up with all this pressure, blitzing, shutting down the run, forcing teams into 2nd and long, 3rd and long, forcing them to pass. They're also forcing teams to play from behind. And so their defense is just so good. They're really one of the more underrated defenses, I think, in the NFL. They get overlooked a lot, I think, because their offense is so good. Plus, you got some other good defenses like the Cardinals and, of course, the Detroit Lions, which those teams are facing off. That's going to be a fun game. But the Broncos, their defense this year is really what's going to carry them. And if they do make it to the Super Bowl, it will be because of their defense. Of course, they're going to have to win a rematch, and he'll end up being Brady Manning 17. We'll see if it gets to that. It very well likely could and should. Of course, there'll be a big question who's coming out the NFC. But we will see. Oh, no. Man, I wish I would have went to the other dude. I want to pick that. But yeah, on running though, you gotta give the advantage to the Broncos because of that defense, and also with how weak the Rams' run defense is. And then, you know, even though without Hillman, C.J. Anderson is looking good. Monty Ball's coming back, even though he doesn't average a lot of yards. They don't really ask him to do that. Monty Ball, he comes in usually, you know, more on those short yard situations. So it's like when Monty Ball is getting the handoff, it's usually when they know he's getting the handoff, like, you know what I mean, 2nd and short, 2nd and 1, or in the goal line. You know, when it's 1st goal, 2nd and goal, that's when you're seeing Monty Ball. That's part of why his average is so low. But also, it's because he is that physical type of back. He's not really a finesse guy. Whereas C.J. Anderson seems to be a pretty good balance of both. And I really think C.J. Anderson is going to be the guy moving forward. At least from what we've seen so far. We'll see though, how he does in this game. It'll be very interesting. Definitely keep an eye on that for sure. But we look at the points scored. When it comes to points scored per game, the Broncos are number 2 in the NFL in putting points on the scoreboard. They put numbers on the board. And the Rams, they're 28th. So they're in the bottom 5. They do not score. They don't score. They don't pass go.
The Broncos are going to burn the first of their 3 timeouts.
I'm like,
right here.
this is a multitask. I'm like looking at the numbers while in between plays. So I'm trying to do 2 things at once. It's amazing that I'm even beating the teams. You see that some of these games are close. This one's actually only 1 score, so it'll be interesting to see if I can get a score right here. I don't have much time, as it's not really keeping an eye on it.
31, and he is tackled.
7 seconds. 56 yards. Maybe 2 plays, maybe 1 play. That's the question. Do we try to sub for a field goal, or do we just go for it? We got here.
The Broncos
Let's go
come
with
onto the
this.
field now for this next series. Welker's in the slot. Peyton Manning from the shotgun. Airing it out.
Oh no, interception. A rare interception for Peyton Manning. Uh-oh, we gotta get this guy. Hey, that's bringing the ball to the half. Peyton doesn't throw interceptions either. On the year, Peyton Manning, though, he does have 7 interceptions, which is kind of a lot. Almost 1 per game, but when you consider that he has 29 touchdowns, which is insanity, it's like, holy Christ, that's 3 times as much as Fitzpatrick. But yeah, which, I mean, why judge him against that? Let's just judge him against the Rams. Well, Austin Davis has 12, and Austin Davis is the only Rams quarterback with a touchdown. So yeah, and he has 9 interceptions, so 12-9, and of course that's probably why he's not getting the start. Whereas 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for Peyton, and he has 2,912 yards passing already on the season. Just phenomenal numbers. It's funny too, because last year he had such a huge year that people aren't really necessarily making as big a deal about this year's numbers, but they're just as impressive, especially when you consider he is a year older. I mean, that's amazing numbers. Guy's ageless, and Demaryius Thomas already has 1,000 yards receiving, 1,200 yards receiving for Demaryius. Very impressive. And actually, Emmanuel Sanders has 852 yards receiving, and Julius Thomas has 423 yards. Even Wes Welker has 236. They're really a very potent offense for sure. And then I go on the interception. But he does, though, he throws so much. He has 353 passing attempts so far this year, and that's versus 233 running plays for the Broncos. So they've thrown the ball a good 100 times, 120 times more than they run it. So Peyton is definitely carrying a huge load on that arm, but he's doing it. He's one of the best quarterbacks, like I said earlier. He's in great shape, especially for his age. It's amazing. Shows you anything is possible. Yeah, with the scoring, though, the Broncos are number 2 in the NFL. The Rams are 28th. When it comes to points allowed, the Broncos are 15th, and the Rams are 27th. So the Broncos are, middle of the road when it comes to letting up points. Part of that is, though, too, is because they score so much and they play with such big leads, and then they end up, their defense just ends up having to defend pass, and then it ends up where, they end up letting up some plays. Because when a team is just throwing the ball, you're going to get turnovers, you're going to get picks, but you're also going to let up a couple big plays, and they're going to get in the end zone. And it's going to kind of balance out. It's going to equal itself out. Like, it won't end up mattering, really, because of the turnovers. So it's like, yeah, you want to throw the ball 50, 60, 70 times against this go-ahead, but you're going to get a couple touchdowns, sure. But you're also going to throw a couple picks, and Peyton is going to put up, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns, so. And then Like I said, now with C.J. Anderson, and when Hillman returns too, and then they have all three, now Monty Ball's healthy, maybe they actually get that running game going a little better. Part of it is, though, too, is when it comes to run the ball, I mean, they need to get just what CJ seems to be. Look at that. Boom. Sack. Oh, yeah. Woo, swoosh. CJ, he had it going a little bit, but once with the run, you kind of have to establish the run to have success with the run. But, at the same time, you would think with how much success they have with the pass that teams would leave them open, not having that many guys in the box, and that they'd be able to get bigger yards on the ground. But that's where No-Shot Moreno came in big last year. Of course, he hasn't been playing because he's injured, but he was still pretty good. He got injured. Yeah, the Rams, though, they let up a lot of points. 27th. I mean, they can't really stop teams. And I mean, if you can't stop other teams, how are you going to stop the Broncos? How are you going to stop Peyton? For real. I mean, even, let's see here. Yeah, they left 34 to the Chiefs, 31 to the Niners, 34 to the Eagles, 34 to Dallas, 34 to Minnesota. That's a lot of points to be letting up to those teams. And then when you get Denver in there, Denver's going to put up, I think, potentially 40, 50 points in this game. But more realistically, they'll probably put up about 34. 34, 35. Something like that, maybe 38. But I won't be surprised if it's 41. Let's just say lots of numbers. Bingo! Julius Thomas with the reception. Right here, though, we're at the point where we get this touchdown. We'll be putting this game away in terms of winning. They can't stop the Broncos here. They're in trouble.
First down here after the completion. Anderson's got it on the handle.
Oh, no. CJ. Maybe I should give Monty Ball a chance. Of course, been throwing the ball too most of the time. It's funny how all the passing plays are almost like I really just want to throw it to the tight end all the time. Of course, Julius Thomas, like I was saying earlier, is one of Peyton's favorite targets. Although Damaris, I mean, come on, he doesn't have 1,000 yards for no reason. Emmanuel Sanders, baby. He's had some big games too. That's the thing is, he's got 852 yards. If he has a $150, he'll have 1,000. That's possible. Especially like what happens is that Damaris, if you want to double team him, then they just go to Emmanuel. And if you want to try to do that, then they got Julius. They'll just go to the tight end. He has so many weapons. How are you going to stop the Broncos? I could let this go down to the quarter, but let's get one out.
Receiver in the slot. First and 10. He'll fire it out to the left.
Not in the end zone, but
that'll gain just a few yards.
Something. 10 for 13. Not a lot of attempts because I was showing this one up to 3 minutes quarters because first I played 5-minute quarters, then I went down to 3-minute quarters. It's like with the way this is, it's a video game. You can pick plays so quick, and I'm getting the points up there anyway. So maybe not the stat numbers and yards and all that. I mean, if I put the 15-minute quarters, we'd be here for 3 hours, for goodness sakes. So in this game anyway, I mean, the Broncos are gonna win. That's why I figured I might as well just go shorter quarters instead of like, what, are we gonna have it be 100-0 or something? If we added longer quarters, it ended up putting up like 56-14 if it was 5-minute quarters, probably.
It has to get off the field as soon as
Touchdown, Julius. Julius. That's his second touchdown of the day. Boom. Look at that. slamming it over the goalpost. It's okay when he does it, though, because Jimmy ain't in the game.
Tight ends are so valuable down on the goal line.
Oh, yeah, there's some continuity for you, a reference to the Saints with the Bengals versus Saints. In that game, Tyler Eifert, I know, slamming it over the thing. I was like, what? That's Jimmy Graham's move.
The Broncos lined up now for the point after.
Oh, uh-oh. Oh, it's up, it's good. I don't know what happened there. Please excuse me, just took a bite of my food. I'm hungry. I'm playing games all day. It's awesome. I get hungry. Alright, here we go. And a touchback. Starting off the fourth quarter, the Broncos are up 21-7. It might be even a bigger margin of, at that point. The Broncos early on in the season, they were having some issues with like closing out games. They'd start off really strong in the first half, but then in the second half they would have to like hold on, but they had the good defense and they did it, but for some reason, defenses were figuring out their offense early on in the season. But as the season's gone on, especially really the key moment was in that Arizona game when they came out, and then the way they played in the second half of that game was huge, especially against that Arizona defense. Peyton had 479 passing yards in that game. Demaryius had 226 receiving yards. And that was kind of like a turning point right there in that game, because that was the game where they just poured it on all game long, and then they just have been like that ever since. I mean, except for the Patriots game, but other than that, they've been just on a tear, just 4 quarters, 60 minutes, just coming at teams, like, just putting up points. That was a big play right there. Was that Trey Mason? I'm not sure. No, but I mean, like, they put up the 41 against Arizona, then 31 against the Jets, 42 against the Niners, 35 against the Chargers. And then not including that Patriots game, they put up 21, but they put up 41 against the Raiders. So it was like big numbers. Whereas, before that, they did put up 31 against the Colts, but they only put up 24 against the Chiefs and 20 against the Seahawks, which is good against those defenses. Especially both those defenses don't let up a lot of points, but lately, though, I mean, you could say part of that is the competition, not like those teams are the best teams, but even though the Raiders have no wins, they still got a pretty good pass defense, regardless. So putting up 41 against Charles Woodson and those guys in the secondary there in Oakland is actually more impressive than people might think. Like I said, they held them actually. Yeah, right. That's just so funny. Peyton's so nasty that you say, yeah, they held him to only 340 yards, but compared to the fact that he's had a couple 400-yard games, even though 340 was actually his third best game. But that's just Peyton, man. Big numbers. He's actually all but 4 of his games he's thrown for 3 or more 100 yards. Wow, man, what the heck? Get him. Because the first 2 weeks he didn't reach 300, but then against Seattle he got 303. And then 479 against the Cardinals, 237 against the Jets, but it was kind of like they took him out earlier, else he would have had more, but 318 against the Niners, 286 against the Chargers, 438 against the Patriots in that loss, 340 against the Raiders. Would not be surprised to see him to put up another 300 against the Rams, although they get up early in this game, they probably are going to pull him. Especially since the Rams, like that pass rush, like why keep them in there if they get, a big lead? Of course, maybe they don't get the big lead because of that pass rush, I think they will though, but they probably end up pulling them in the fourth.
Let's see what they do on first down following that.
So you don't want to leave them vulnerable to those guys, and that's going to be a big challenge for their offensive line. Oh no, look at that, they scored. Sean Hill making it interesting, and that's actually something too with the Rams you got to watch out for, is that they score in the second half. when it looks like they're down and out, they don't quit. The Rams do not quit. They don't know the word. They just keep coming at you. Whether they are successful or not, they don't quit. Because, I mean, every game, they make it interesting, you know, even if they lose. You got to respect that. I mean, look at, like, in their losses, you know, they lost to the Cowboys by only a field goal. They lost to the Eagles by only 6 points. First time around, you know, the Niners beat them pretty decent, but that game even too was interesting until they, you know, and then they came back against the Seahawks. That was crazy, you know. Of course, lately though, they haven't been doing that, you know. Of course, the way they lost to the Chiefs, they didn't have to do that against the Niners. That was a low-scoring defensive battle there. But then, of course, Arizona, they kind of faltered, and again, that's why we're seeing Sean Hill. Of course, he was kind of spot, even though Austin Davis could have kept it if he would have been playing better. Kind of played himself out of the starting job with the, you know, his numbers in the last 4 weeks. But yeah, right here, 2 minutes left in this game. Got the lead by a touchdown, but still, it's not over yet. So maybe they won't pull pain. Oh, yeah. Big, huge win for the Broncos. But actually, it's just a one-score game right here.
They face first down. Anderson's going to take the handoff now.
What's that? Look, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's the water boy. What is up with this game that Aaron Rodgers is just like everywhere? He's like on both sidelines. He's in the audience. He's the trainer. He's the referee. So like, is this a commercial for freaking whatever the heck that stuff is? Was it State Farm or some crap?
Wide receivers stacked up on this play.
Alright, here we go. Second
down and 8. Trying to work the middle of the field. Incomplete. Almost going in the other direction.
Good play by the defense. That's Laurinaitis. Almost intercepted though. That would have been huge. That would have been a second pick. What is going on? What am I doing? 3rd and 8 now.
The Broncos have to get to the
Here we
41.
go. 3rd down conversions. They're 100%. They've only had 2 third downs all game. That's crazy.
Manning's going to take the snap from the shotgun.
Oh no! And that one didn't get converted. Going to Wes Welker. Good defense.
He was watching the quarterback. He's all over the receiver, so it was easy for him to knock the throw down.
And we're going to have to punt the ball here. Ooh, this isn't good. This game is in jeopardy. Is this going to happen in real life? Or is this just a video game? Like I said, in real life, I think the Broncos probably put up a ton of points. Of course, I think the Rams could, you know, maybe put some points up, but you wouldn't think so. Like, on paper, the Broncos are obviously a way better team, but, you never know. The Rams are actually, I think, underrated. If they were healthy, the Rams could be competitive. The NFC West is a really good division, even though, you know, there's some struggles in their division, but still, top to bottom, that division, Arizona, Seattle, San Fran, and St. Louis, those are some really good teams. I thought so last year too. That division was just incredible. It continues to be this year, even though the Rams just keep having those injury issues. However it is though too, being that the division's so tough, it makes the teams have to be better if they want to try to compete. You know, if the Rams were in a different division, then they would actually be more competitive. And, well, I mean, no, that kind of goes into this. What I mean is that the Rams in another division would probably have more success, but they're actually kind of a more competitive team because of the competitiveness of their division. So, I mean, I guess if they were in another division, they wouldn't be as good, right?
Terrible route by the
So
wide
there goes
receiver.
that.
Oh, wow, what a shot. The football was incomplete.
Gotta come up with a big stop on defense here, though. The Broncos got the D.
Second down after the
Yeah,
end.
their defense was a little weak last year. They were alright, but their defense this year is way improved. Some key players that they added, you know, Keep the Lead, DeMarcus Ware, just to name a couple. And those additions have been huge because it's not just a matter of them playing at the levels they're playing at, it's also the fact that by them being there, it opens up the other players that they have that are really talented to also have success. So, I mean, you know, you had Von Miller, and then you bring in DeMarcus Ware. Look at them both. All, you know, they combine and have 17 sacks. Same thing, you know, you bring a Keep to Lead into that secondary, and it just brings the level of play up for everyone in the secondary. So here we are, 4th and 10, a huge 4th down for the Rams and the Broncos too. We gotta stop them. Bringing a blitz. Stop them here. They turn over on downs, and that's the game. Uh-oh, wide open. No, wide open, quick. Oh my goodness. Maybe I shouldn't have blitzed. And now they're running up here. We'll call timeout. Dang. What a huge play by Sean Hill. Fine and quick. Coming up clutch.
Following that timeout, defense.
I can't believe they're going to 4 receivers right here. It's like, what the heck?
The Rams come to the line.
This is weird. The computer is doing some weird play calling.
First and goal. Looking for an open receiver.
Oh!
That's a touchdown late in this one.
Look at that touchdown. Oh, doing the dance. What? Getting down. Jeff Fisher's happy. And the Rams fans are going crazy in the stands there in St. Louis. And this game is tied up. And now Peyton Manning and the Broncos are going to have to score, or else it's going into overtime. Could this game go to overtime?
The Rams have come back late in this one.
55 seconds on the clock.
What a game this has been, tied up.
I think they're going to go for an onside kick almost.
Well, when we get this late in the game,
not.
it just comes down to, do you have the courage to try to make the play, or you just hang in and hope the other team makes a mistake? We'll find out.
They're happy to go to overtime.
That's a touchback.
And there's the touchback. Alright, we got 2 timeouts, 55 seconds. Can we get down there for the field goal to win this thing? Can we do it? Look at all those banners. Gotta go with a shotgun. Shotgun. Omaha! Omaha!
The Broncos offense ready now to see what it can do. This game is all tied up and it's headed to the wire. Manning's back in shotgun formation.
Demaryius Thomas. Boom, first down. Let's keep this going.
When you can't hit the quarterback or put pressure on him,
look at
there's
that.
not much
Boom, right
get done
there.
That time,
Paid a
quarterback
price.
that time, throws it down the field for another
You paid
completion.
the ultimate price. Alright, come on, let's go. Gotta hurry up here. Jeez, I don't know if this is really the play to pick, but...
The offense is set at the line for the first down after that completion.
Oh my god. Almost sacked. That was horrible. Just trying to do something stupid, but that was crazy. Alright, here we go. Guess I got more time to pick my play.
Welker's lined up in the slot. Quarterback taking the snap from the shotgun. Manning,
look at that, Wes Welker, wide open. What? In the field goal range, baby. Let's call the timeout.
Take a timeout here.
Wes Welker. What a play by Wes. Coming up clutch. Huge play by Welker. That was awesome. Now we're right there. We're ready for the field goal if we need it. Let's see if we can get in the end zone. 25 seconds on the clock.
First down and 10. Eye that left side.
ELiAS with the first down. Let's use our last timeout. Still 19 seconds. See if we can get a touchdown here. Still got plenty of time for the field goal. Just, even if we get tackled, we'll just set up real fast. Look at that, the Rams called the timeout. Are they trying to ice Peyton? Maybe they wanted a different defense. They saw something they didn't like. Alright, let's see. Can we do this? Looks like they actually got a good defense picked out.
So first and goal to go.
Touchdown! Julius Thomas. That's his third touchdown of the game. Julius. Woo! What would you think? Of course, Julius Thomas, touchdown. Peyton Manning goes 80 yards. He only had 55 seconds to do it, and he left some time left on the clock even. Look at this catch. Julius Thomas, the tight end, coming up huge. ELiAS had that big catch on first down, and here's Julius right there in the end zone for the win. There's only 15 seconds left. So, look at that. Boom. Peyton Manning goes the length of the field in just 40 seconds. Peyton Manning getting it done. That's 4 touchdowns for Peyton. 1 interception. Those are Peyton numbers. And here's the kick. That's funny, Prater. I gotta adjust that. He's not on their team no more. He's with Detroit now.
Smart play here.
So now the Rams will have 15 seconds to try to duplicate what Peyton just did in 40 seconds, or else this game is over. Yeah, that's right. We're going to the prevent. Just go prevent. Just go prevent. I really am not a fan of the prevent. I usually am against the prevent, but in a case like this, I'm going prevent. Oh, interception! Raheem Moore comes up with the pick, and that does it right there. That seals the deal. The Broncos are victorious on the road in St. Louis. That's going to be the result here. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Let me know if you think the Rams are going to win. Do you think the Broncos will win? Also, let me know what you think about this new format. If you enjoy the VO gameplay, as we're bringing you this here in 1080p HD. And if you're not seeing it in 1080p, then what have you been doing this whole time? You could have just hit that gear thingy there and put the quality at 1080p. Of course, you wish they would just put it in that automatic. Why don't they just do that? Okay, all we got left here is just take that knee, and this game is over. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button to, let us know you enjoyed it. You can also leave a comment and let us know. You can leave a comment on the channel too if you want. And if you want more content such as this, just go ahead and subscribe. So we bring you upon further reviews for each and every single game, each and every single week for the NFL. all season long and through the playoffs. We also do recaps as well and some other stuff too. And while you're at it, you can also go check out Skool. That's Skool. And the easiest way to find it, just put like Skool WWE 2K15. Or you can even check out a new channel we just started, Random GP. And that's RANDUMB GP. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. It really is. I do appreciate it. What the heck? I did not want to go for a field goal. What the hell is this crap? What the hell? Why am I going for a field goal? This is not right. It won't let me audible. I can't time out. This is some bull crap. I'm just gonna let me delay a game. What the heck? I meant to go for the knee because they called the timeout instead of just letting the clock go down. Friggin' Rams. They can't let go. Just like, let go. You lost, St. Louis. Accept your fate. Prater's like, what the heck? How did I get a penalty? I'm not even on the Broncos. I'm not even supposed to be here today. Friggin' ridiculous. There's a little comedy for you. Here we go. Here's the knee and the victory from the victory formation. Peyton Manning, 4 touchdowns. He's got to be the player of the game. I mean, that's why they're showing him, right? Of course. Peyton Manning comes up big in St. Louis on the road. Sean Hill loses in his first game back as the starter. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a score, but hey, who knows? You never know. I think probably the Broncos end up putting up a little bit more points, but maybe like 35-21, something like that. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. But that's how this one turned out. Here's the play of the game. What's the play of the game? Are you kidding me? That was bunk. What a bunk play of the game. Oh well. Don't matter. Broncos still won. I guess the computer's just mad. Anyway, that's that. Thank you once again. Greatly appreciate it. I hope you're having a good day and have a great weekend and enjoy all of the sports.